All right, so I was on the tube last night and I came across a video from mega influencer Alex Eubank detailing his decision to go on testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, at the age of 24. Google says he's 24. There was also an interview with Noel Diesel where he discusses this decision in depth, and I watched both videos and it rubbed me the wrong way, so I thought I'd post a video sharing my thoughts. I have many direct quotes from the videos right here in front of me, as well as my own notes. So let's get right into it. First off, as background, Alex Eubank is someone who is perpetually lean. By that I mean 10% body fat or less year-round. He's terrified of gaining any body fat whatsoever. He himself discusses starving himself and being ultra obsessed with staying lean. And I believe he's been working out for, well, he says 7 or 8 years, and he's weighed the same, which is 170 at 5'10". He's weighed the same for the last 4-ish years or so. And there are many comments on social media poking fun at the fact that his physique has not changed over this period of time. And he starts talking in his video. He goes, "When my body is lean and aesthetic, I feel like shit. I feel like less of a man. My sex drive and my sleep is shit. Bad energy and brain fog." And then he goes, "When I'm bulked up and fatter, I feel better, but I don't like how I look as much." And just so you know, when he's saying bulked up and fatter, he's not referring to being, 18 to 20% body fat, where, a lot of people push their bulk. He's referring to being at 12 to 15% body fat, which is absurd, but he clearly has crippling body dysmorphia. And I would say it's pretty difficult to build any muscle or cover your nutritional bases when you're starving yourself like he does. And basically, he's terrified of gaining weight, even though he would build more muscle if he did this, and then he would look better in the long run. So let's see what this whole process looked like and why he says he's going on TRT. So we already established that he has crippling body dysmorphia, right? And he's too lean for too long. So he goes into this TRT clinic. They take his T levels. They're 350, which I suppose is low, but we know this can fluctuate dramatically based on a variety of factors. And we also know that his lifestyle is not conducive to having healthy T levels. But anyways, he goes in, they're 350. He asks what the options are, and they recommend getting on TRT. Which, imagine that. Imagine a 24-year-old coming in. He has crippling body dysmorphia, probably an eating disorder, and you recommend that he go on TRT for life. That's absolutely absurd to me, and it speaks volumes to the integrity that these clinics have. And his eureka moment, the moment he knew it was time to make a permanent life decision, this was a direct quote. This is how he describes that moment. He says, and I quote, "I was like, bro, at the moment. I was like, fuck it, bro. I was like, we ball. I was like, dude, we're going to do it." To me, that does not sound like someone who should be making any decisions whatsoever concerning anything. And in his Noel Diesel interview, he talks about feeling like shit when he's lean. He goes, "My body has gotten so used to being at such a low level for so long." And I don't know what he means by that. What do you mean your body got used to being lean? So he knows his lifestyle is not conducive to having good T levels, but he wants to artificially boost them up without addressing any of the factors contributing to the low T levels in the first place. He says, and I quote, he says this word for word. He says, "I have the worst diet. Well, not the worst diet, but I haven't tracked macros in like a year and a half." Which, look, I'm not saying that everyone needs to track macros, but if you have low T levels, I think taking a look at your diet is a no-brainer before you hop on TRT for the rest of your life in your early 20s. He also seems to contradict himself. He's saying that he's getting on TRT for health reasons, but He also makes it very clear in some of the quotes I'll get into shortly that his real motive is just muscle gain, and he wants to get bigger for social media. He says he's currently 170 at 5'10", and this is what he says. He says his goal is to weigh 180 with the TRT. So he's going on steroids to gain 10 pounds. Granted, it's 10 pounds of pure muscle that he's referring to, but 5'10", 170, you probably have some weight to gain. You could do this naturally. But maybe he doesn't like working out. Maybe that's an underlying factor here. But anyways, this is some dumb shit. But he starts his first video. He starts it with the following. In reference to taking PEDs, he says, "I'm not here to please anyone. I'm not here to fit in anyone's box. I'm here for me. Not because I need validation, not because I'm chasing numbers or approval, but because I have more to prove to myself." And to that, I would say, what are you proving? That you gain muscle when you go on steroids? Like, what are you talking about? What could there possibly be to prove? And right after that, he goes, "I'm so confident that I'm going to transform my physique, and all the people talking shit, saying your physique hasn't changed, I'm going to take a quarter of the amount of gear that your favorite influencers probably take and have a physique they can dream to have." So you're not doing this for validation or approval, but you're directly referencing the hate comments and your position as a fitness influencer as a motive for taking TRT. That doesn't make any sense. So I think this is all very stupid. First off, if his goal really is to gain 10 pounds of muscle, he could probably do it naturally, right? 5'10", 180, those are awesome stats, awesome. And I'm not saying it would be easy to get to, but he's a full-time fitness influencer. Full-time fitness influencer. How hard is it to just put in the training without getting into PEDs, right? There's people with 7 kids who work long hours, right? Who are very busy, and they still put in the work to get to those kinds of metrics just because they like training. Like, it might, again, like, does he not like working out? I don't know what's going on here. His body dysmorphia, it's so severe that he can't even fathom putting on any body fat whatsoever temporarily in order to achieve these physique goals. So he's going on TRT to gain 10 pounds of muscle, but he admits he hasn't been dialed in. We already discussed the diet, right? He says his diet's shit, but this is another quote. He says, "I've never had a training regimen. I just kind of go in and do what I want." And then he says that his genetics have taken him a long way. So his diet is shit. He's never dialed in his training, and the genetics have carried him, he says. I have many opinions on PEDs and staying natural that I'll discuss in later videos. But in my view, if you can't dial in those factors when you're natural, how are you going to when you're on PEDs? Because now you introduce PEDs, you're introducing something that by itself will give you results. Why all of a sudden would you start trying harder in the other categories? I don't understand that. He says, and I quote, "If I can be 180-ish at 10% body fat, then I'd be good. I'd be cool with that. I don't care about being super crazy big." And to that, I would say, really? Really? Someone with perhaps the worst case of body dysmorphia I've ever seen. That someone is going to go on TRT, gain 10 pounds of muscle, and that's it. You live happily ever after, you ride into the sunset. There's absolutely zero chance that body dysmorphia is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And I would argue it's probably going to get worse now that you've gone down the enhanced route. He'll gain some muscle, he'll adapt to what he sees in the mirror, and the process will repeat itself. I don't understand how he can't see that, right? Humans adapt. He himself has gone from someone that wasn't rich to being rich, and he's unhappy. He's someone who went from looking like a normal dude to being known as one of the more aesthetic people out there. That wasn't enough. Still unhappy. What does this fix? This fixes absolutely nothing. Your state of mind, the issues you have internally, those aren't going anywhere just because you started TRT. And in my opinion, this is not going to end well. I don't see a scenario where he's just on low-level TRT for the rest of his life. I think he's either going to realize it's a mistake and come off, or it won't be enough for him and he'll keep on pushing perhaps more testosterone or other compounds, and we know that won't end well, right? Because he's already stated that his motivations, well, maybe not stated, but you can see that the reason he's doing this is because of his own insecurities, right? So no amount of drugs is going to fix this. And I would say, what's the bigger jump? Going from being someone in your early 20s, not on TRT, to hopping on TRT, right? That's a huge jump. Or being on TRT and just taking a little more, or just adding a little something else. To me, that second jump is a way easier one to make. So I don't understand why he can't foresee that being a possibility. So in short, my opinion on this is that going on TRT will resolve none of his problems, and that at some point he'll realize this. He goes on to make some pretty hypocritical statements. The first thing he says is, we live in a society where everyone wants shit immediately. No one wants to work for it. And he says this as he's describing his decision to go on TRT in his early 20s to achieve natty attainable metrics. Also, this is the same person who's been caught photoshopping social media posts to make himself look bigger. To me, that kind of aligns with the whole wanting shit immediately thing. And then he talks about meeting people in college who are on SARMs or gear, and he says, and I quote, "To me, you're an actual loser, like you need help. That shit's embarrassing as hell." In reference to the decision to go on PEDs, he says, like, know what you're doing and have a reason to do it. Like, if you're doing it because you think it's going to blow up your social media, you're an idiot. He just outlined how he's doing this for social media, so I don't understand what the angle is there. Then he says, don't start taking steroids because you think you're going to be the next C-bum. You're delusional at that point. And to that, I would argue that going on TRT in your early 20s because you think that adding an extra 10 pounds of muscle is going to cure your crippling body dysmorphia, that's delusional. And then he says, a lot of these college kids think it's just going to get them jacked. It's so stupid. Those kids are idiots. You just said you're taking TRT to get more jacked. And then he goes on to plug the TRT company that he's getting TRT from, and he encourages his audience, who I assume is mainly teenagers. He goes and encourages them to get their levels checked out. Good job, man. So yeah, that's how I feel about all this. Definitely annoys me. Check out the free training resources I have below. I have a template you can use to help plan out and track your training. I have a PR tracker, and then I also have a diet tracker you can use when you're trying to gain or lose weight. There's going to be more stuff like that coming out on this channel as well as the last episode of the top 50 most jacked fullbacks in NFL history series. Yeah, thanks for watching and have a good day.